Hey, what's happening, guys? Dan Darrow here with another Options and Play video update. I hate when I have an idea and I don't follow through with it. I know it sounds crazy sometimes that I'd rather be involved with something and lose money, right, and not have it work, than have like an idea that I'm really focused on, not not put any risk on, and then watch it work, you know, exactly as I had hoped or drew up, right? Um, and TLT is definitely one that got away, unfortunately. Um, so I know if you guys have been at our option sessions the last like 2 months, that you probably heard me talk about TLT more than you really cared for, right? And I mean, because to be frank, I mean, there really wasn't much going on with TLT, right? And I guess that was really the reason why I was talking about it so much. I kept saying it was marinating, right? Like it was just marinating, 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 and what I meant by that was that it basically it was just hanging out sideways, right? After like the really sharp drop, right? You had like the move, the break of the range back in September, October, November, kind of spooked people a little bit, right? They thought that rates were going to start to move, and then you had the monster reversal back in December and January as people realized that rates probably weren't going to be moving as aggressively as they expected, right? So you had a breakdown and then a sharp snapback, and basically we're resetting like this long-term resistance, right? And above like the support range, and it was just kind of marinating. And I like to say that people really weren't focused on it because it didn't catch a lot of people's attention. I mean, like, it wasn't doing anything. People didn't really care about it. They were more focused on equities, right? Because it was kind of like a risk-on environment into equities, and it it was hard, or it was easy to kind of like dismiss the overall action and say, it's there's nothing doing here. There's really no reason to be involved. But like you can see, what I'll show you in a second is that when bonds have a big move in a short period, it can impact a lot of things like in overall markets, right? Especially in equities, um, and it can really like spook people pretty quick, right? Um, so what I was looking at was I didn't know necessarily which way it was going to break. After I remember talking though, after like this sharp snap down here, like I was glad that I kind of held off and really stuck to my price points because it looked like it almost was going to break down, but I really didn't have an opinion which way it was going to go. I was just kind of waiting for a confirmation of a break either above or below like this recent range, and the reason why was just because of the reason why I look at a lot of the consolidations, right? It's like the options tend to uh, the implied volatility of options when ETFs, in this case, or stocks in general, are in consolidations. The implied volatility tends to contract because the ranges tend to contract, right? The overall movement on a day-to-day basis is contracting, so you see the options start to contract, and the prices tend to be better. Okay, so you can get better deals because then when the ranges start to open up and the things start moving around again, that's when the volatility starts to expand and the implied volatility premiums start to expand a bit, right? So that's why I always focus on, well, not always, but I do like to focus on things in consolidations, is because the options can tend to offer better entrances sometimes. So what I was waiting on was either a break of the 122.50, 123 area, or a break below like 118, just because like the way the chart is set up, there really seemed to be like a 5 or 6 point move either way, right? Out of like this tight consolidation, right? So either drop to retest the low or rally up into like the high 120s to get basically do what it's done in the past, which is once it got through this area, right? This was support. So rolled over support, rally, rolled over support, rallied, then broke below it. Then it was resistance. So if it got through it, you're looking for a move up into like 128 to 129, right? So the way the range set up, there was 5 to 6 points either way, and the options were only looking for like a 2 to 2.5 point move, right? So what happened was, unfortunately, this is where I'm kind of upset with myself, is that that didn't have any on at the time, and it began to like tick up through the top here, but it didn't really confirm it. It was almost like a signal that it was about ready to go, but it wasn't really confirming it. And then on the the Fed Powell day, right? So the Fed rate decision is when you saw this monster breakout when they said they're not moving rates this year and only once next year, and that was just like monster volume, monster gap breakout. And at that point, it was already up into like the 124.50 area, and it was tough to chase it there, just because it was up substantially on the day, and it blew through like the entrance by more than a little. Um, so I didn't get involved, and now what's happened is, as is usually the case, when you don't get into it is when it works perfectly, and now it's really starting to extend. So, the trigger through 123 has led to basically a 4 or 5 day move up past 126, right? And now it does look like it's still kind of got that line up into like the 120s, right? I mean, if you the high 120s, I mean, if you just respect the range, then you're looking for a move up into like the 128 to 129 area, so there could still be like $3 left. But now, from like a trade point of view, like the risk reward is a little bit different, right? So like when you're looking at options, like yes, there still could be some room here, right? These are the April 18th expiration, so this is like 3.5 weeks out. We're looking for maybe like 275 or so, right? 275 to 3. So that there could still potentially be some room there, but it's not as favorable a setup now because it's already extended 3 points. And what you can see is that the implied volatility has ticked up a little bit, right? So historical 9, these are up near like the 10 into like the 10-11 area. And you could say, okay, what if you want to go out a little bit further? But going out to June, yes, you get a little bit better deal, but then you're paying up to like almost 5 points, and it kind of removes some of the potential, right? So it's moved. The TLT's moved 3, only looking for another 3, possibly on top, and you know, paying up for some of these options kind of removes a little bit of the upside potential. You could just, maybe just look at like a bullish position, wait for a little bit of a pullback, which is what I might do. Is maybe a pullback to 125. So let's go back. So maybe if you get a little bit of pullback to 125, right? Small consolidation, like a quick consolidation, quick bull flag that develops, right? So you get a high volume, high participation breakout. See if there's a quick bull flag that develops, and then maybe take a shot on like just a shorter term bullish bet, looking for something up into like the 128 to 129 range. So that's kind of how I'm approaching it, now that I've missed it, unfortunately. So like the pricing is not as favorable. The setup is not as favorable as it was down here, but there could still be some potential. So I'm keeping an eye on it. Conversely, right, if it rolls over and breaks back below 123, that would be a pretty nasty breakout failure, and it actually could lead to a retest of the range low, and ultimately a breakdown from there. But that's obviously a story for a different day. But now that it has broken out, it needs to stay broken out, and it needs to build on that. Otherwise, like the trade just in general is probably something that you just want to hold off or avoid. But like I said at the beginning of the video, it's like a lot of times, like I'd rather have the trade on, have the risk in play, especially if it's something that I've watched for so long, right? Like you want to have some money at risk, because it really it's frustrating when you have like a top idea and you've watched it for months, and then you miss your entrance and it works just just the way you wanted it to, which is basically what's happening right now. We'll see. I'm gonna keep an eye on it, right? And this might actually be something that I blast out an alert during the day if I see something forming, or if I see some option activity that warrants a trade. So keep an eye out. Like I have this, like it's all up on like my radar. I've been focused on it for the last couple days, and I'm just kind of waiting for a decent entrance. But I'll obviously pass it along an alert if something develops and there's a reason for a trade there, right? All right, so we're getting into the part of the week where you're going to get some bigger movers earnings wise. It's been a little bit slower up until this point, but now you're getting tonight and tomorrow night, the two busier days of this week. So start to see maybe a little bit more interest in the names that report. Still waiting on some bio news. The quarter is wrapping up here, so still waiting on some bio news. So even though the market overall is pretty choppy, we should wrap up the week with some decent news events. So looking forward to hopefully, ideally, some better action than like the chop that we've gotten so far. All right. So I hope you guys have a wonderful night. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have comments on this TLT trade or just any trade I've talked about recently or any like the trade ideas in the nightly letter. So definitely don't hesitate to reach out because I'd love to hear from you. All right. So again, have a great night, and I'll talk to you guys all tomorrow.